The Millionaire and the Male Beggar, a tale of unexpected friendship. The room glimmered with golden glass. Crystal chandeliers spilled light like liquid over tuxedos and gowns that whispered wealth. Edward Miller stood tall among the crowd, the sharpest suit, the widest grin, a man who owned the city just by walking through it. 35, ruthless and climbing, he thrived on power. Tonight's charity gala was his stage, a lavish show to polish his company's reputation. Cameras flashed, laughter bubbled, but Edward's eyes were cold, scanning the room for admiration. Then came the noise, a shuffling from the grand entrance. Heads turned, whispers cracked like brittle glass. A man stumbled in, ragged clothes stained with dirt, eyes like chipped stones, hands trembling with cold or fear. No invitation, no place at this glittering table. The homeless figure, Jack Smith, glaring like a shadow in the flood of light, shocked everyone. Edward noticed. His lips curled into a sniff. He barked, the sharp edge of his voice crashing the delicate bubble of the room. "Are you lost, beggar? This isn't your playground." The crowd stiffened. Murmurs rose, some shocked, some amused, watching as Edward publicly humiliated this stranger. Jack's gaze didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled, a slow, knowing twist that dug under Edward's skin. Then Jack spoke, voice rough but clear, cutting through the hum like a blade. "You think you own the world, don't you, Edward? Power isn't what you wear." His words felt like a slap to the face, echoing far beyond the ballroom walls. Edward's chest tightened. The laughter around him died into pin-drop silence. The crowd's eyes turned sharper, hungry now, some trembling with a mix of fear and fascination. Suddenly, Jack pulled off his hood. The change was cruel, stunning. The beggar was no stranger. It was the president of the Central Banking Authority himself. The room gasped. Flashbulbs exploded like thunder. Edward froze, every muscle trembling. The man he crushed publicly had the power to crush him back tenfold. Jack's smile was cold now, razor-sharp truth cutting through Edward's arrogance. "You're done, Edward. Your reign ends tonight." Within hours, the news blasted every headline. Edward Miller, top executive, fired, scandal shocked, stripped of title and privilege, the luxury car keys gone, the penthouse silent. A nightmare dressed in reality. Edward's world fractured. The bright city lights dimmed as he wandered dark streets, lost and empty. Cold reality bit deep, hollowing out his chest. But inside that void, something stirred, a fragile flicker. No money, no status, just the rubble of choices. The long nights birthed questions, fears, and tiny sparks of hope. Maybe wealth wasn't gold or power, but something harder to grasp. Respect, integrity. He started small. A consultancy, odd at first, preaching human dignity in cutthroat corporate worlds. Slowly, voices listened, doors creaked open. But the shadows followed. Pieces of Jack's past surfaced, dark stains tied to financial scandals nobody dared mention. The man who shattered Edward's life was no saint. One rainy evening, the phone buzzed with a chill. Edward's hand shook. The screen showed a number he knew, a voice he dreaded. "Jack, we need to talk," the message snarled. The question slammed down, heavy and cold. Can these two broken men build something real? Or will the secrets lurking beneath destroy them both? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact." The phone felt like ice in Edward's hand. The weight of Jack's name was leaden. "We need to talk." The words echoed, taunting him. Should he answer? Should he ignore the man who had unraveled his life in a matter of moments? Before he could decide, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a series of missed calls from his lawyer. Panic crept into his chest. He dialed back, already feeling the dread take shape in his gut. "Edward, thank God. We need to rush. There's an emergency," his lawyer said, voice tight and strained. What's happened?" Edward felt the floor shift under him, his heart racing. "Meet me at the office. It's urgent. About your situation with Jack." The line went dead, the eerie silence echoing. Was Jack plotting some final blow? Edward grabbed his coat and strode out of his apartment, determination mixed with fear twisting in his stomach. The streets were slick with rain, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon as he moved. His mind raced, every encounter with Jack replayed. The cold smile, the echoing silence of the gala, the way the crowd had turned on him, as if he were nothing more than a shadow. The air felt electric, charged with something imminent. When he reached the office, the tension hummed through the glass doors. His lawyer, Daniel, was waiting, his face pale and ashen. "You're not going to believe this," Daniel said, leading him into a cramped conference room. Edward's heart pounded faster. "What is it?" Daniel handed him a stack of papers. "These just came in. You need to see this." As Edward scanned the documents, confusion flooded his mind. They were detailed reports implicating Jack in a massive embezzlement scheme. But something was off. Each page turned and felt heavier than the last, filled with names of corporations, large sums of money, connections that twisted back to Edward's own company. "Why do I care about Jack's finances?" Edward snapped, frustration bubbling over. "The man ruined me!" "Because you're connected," Daniel replied, his voice urgent. "These deals go back years. They show that you were framed. Someone positioned you as the scapegoat." Edward stumbled back, his mind racing to comprehend. "Framed? But who?" "Guess who?" Daniel's eyes darted, the realization dawning heavy on both their faces. "Your father. He pulled the strings, Edward. He wanted you out. Undermined you to take control of the company." Shock peeled away at Edward's sanity. "No, he wouldn't. He's my father." The words felt like ash on his tongue. But Daniel's gaze was unyielding. "I know it's hard, but think about it. Your fall lined up perfectly with his rise. Don't you see?" The walls felt like they were caving in. Edward's mind raced back through memories, every strained conversation, every veiled threat that he had brushed off. How blind had he been? Suddenly, the door burst open. Jack stood there, drenched from the rain, wild-eyed and pouring over with urgency. "Edward, you have to listen to me." "What now?" Edward spat, every nerve in him taut. "It's bigger than you think. You can't trust anyone." Jack's voice cracked, filled with raw panic. "We both need to stick together if we're going to get to the truth." Confusion twisted into something sharper. Here was the man whose accusations had sent Edward crashing into ruin, now seemingly desperate for some alliance. Could he trust Jack? Could he even trust himself? And then came the sound, a loud crash from down the hall. The lights flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped them, broken only by distant shouts and the blare of sirens rushing closer. In that moment, every tension, every betrayal, twisted into a single terrifying thought. Something far more dangerous was unfolding. The stakes were tremulous, and they were more caught up in it than they had ever realized. As Edward and Jack stood surrounded by shadows, they knew they were about to unravel truths that would change everything, or destroy them both. The darkness closed in around them, a thick veil that swallowed the distant sounds of chaos echoing from the hallway. Edward's heart raced, a wild drumbeat in his chest as he struggled to process what Jack was saying. They were in this together now, caught in a web of lies and danger. But could this storm truly bring them closer? Before he could respond, a loud crash shattered through the silence. The lights flickered once, then died completely. Shadows loomed like sinister figures, and the only sound was the whoosh of rain hitting the glass. Edward's hands trembled. Was it a break-in? Were they truly in danger? A voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Get down!" Jack lunged, pulling Edward away from the door, just as a blinding flash lit the room. An explosion rocked the building, sending debris flying. The walls shook, and the air was thick with dust and panic. Edward's instincts kicked in, adrenaline surging. "Follow me," he shouted, grabbing Jack's arm and leading him to a side exit. But before they could reach it, the door burst open with a heavy kick. A man in a black mask stormed in, gun drawn. "Freeze!" he barked, eyes cold and merciless. The breath caught in Edward's throat. This wasn't just a robbery. This was intentional. "Stop!" Jack shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We aren't your targets." But the man only laughed, a sinister sound that sent shivers down Edward's spine. "Oh, but you are. You both are." Orders from above. Edward's mind spun. Who was this guy? Who wanted them dead? Shadows danced along the walls, making it hard to think. Jack's face was pale, fear etched deep in his eyes. In that moment, everything felt fragile, as if the whole world was on the brink of collapse. The gunman's finger twitched on the trigger. Panic clawed at Edward's insides. "What do you want?" he shouted, trying to stall for time. "Simple," the man sneered. "The truth. You've made enemies, and now you'll pay. Secrets are worth a lot more than you realize." "Secrets?" Edward echoed, bewildered. He felt Jack's grip slip. What did this man know? Before he could delve deeper into the man's cryptic words, another figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, sleek and composed, stepping forward into the dim light. "Wait," she said, her tone steady. "There's been a mistake." Shock coursed through Edward. "Who the hell are you?" She smiled, an unsettling mix of warmth and something darker. "You don't recognize me, do you? I'm Lisa, your father's right hand." The words hit him like a blow. His father? The man who had plotted his fall? Jack turned to Edward, confusion wrinkling his brow. "Your father?" Lisa continued, energy shifting in the room. "Your father set you up, Edward, and in his haste, he created chaos. He had a plan that got out of control. But you and Jack, you could be the keys to fixing this." Edward felt the floor drop. "Fixing what?" "Your family's legacy. Right now, it's being dismantled by forces you can't comprehend." "What do you mean?" Jack said, stepping forward. Before anyone could react, the gunman took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "Time's up. Everyone's got a price, including families. If you want to get out of this alive, it's time to choose sides." The tension crackled in the air. Edward's mouth went dry. He realized then that the bombshell wasn't just Jack's revelation, it was this moment. Could they trust Lisa? In a heartbeat, the room shifted again. The line drawn between life and death, between allies and enemies, more blurred than ever. Everything he thought he knew was in question. The truth was just the beginning. As the neon lights flickered back on, painting the room in sickly colors, the chaos outside intensified. Edward and Jack stood on the precipice of a new world where loyalties tangled like webs. One choice, one move, and everything could change. Then the gunman's gaze flickered, uncertainty moving through him. "Make a choice," he said, voice steady. They had no time left. Their decision loomed, life hanging in the balance. As Edward's breath quickened, One truth sank in deeper than the rest. They were just two players in a game far larger than themselves. And now, the stakes were terrifyingly high. The gunman's gaze flickered, uncertainty creeping into his stance. Edward felt the weight of the moment, a pregnant silence heavy with tension. "Make a choice," he repeated, voice steady as if he were a puppet master dangling the strings of fate. Edward's heart thumped loudly in his chest, each beat echoing the urgency in the room. Everything felt raw, the air thick with sweat and fear. He stole a glance at Jack. The look in Jack's eyes mirrored his feelings: confusion, distrust, and an inkling of unexpected solidarity. They were trapped, yet grappling with the weight of their shared predicament. "Why should we trust you?" Edward demanded, directing his ire at Lisa. "You work for the man who brought us here." Lisa's expression hardened, but she stood her ground. "I didn't want this. Your father thinks he's all-powerful, but there are forces even he can't control. He's playing a dangerous game. And you're both pawns." The gunman grinned at this, the gleam in his eye revealing his enjoyment of the chaos. "Seems like you're both caught in a web of lies. You start to realize how fragile power really is?" Before Edward could respond, the room shook as footsteps pounded outside, louder and closer. The gunman straightened, distracted. "What now?" His voice clipped with irritation. Suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered violently. Then static silence enveloped them again. A single spotlight burst through the darkness, illuminating the far end of the room. And to Edward's horror, it revealed a figure standing there, cloaked in black, a hooded shadow exuding an air of authority. "Let them go," the figure commanded, voice smooth, yet commanding, slicing through the heavy air like a razor. The gunman hesitated, confused, torn between the authority of the voice and the chaos of the moments before. "Who the hell are you?" he spat still. The hood shrugged off the darkness, stepping forward with a confidence that unnerved everyone. "Someone you don't want to mess with. Release them." "What's this?" Edward muttered, his heart racing, suddenly feeling smaller in the presence of this new stranger, whose authority seemed palpable. With a swift, unintended motion, the gunman turned to shoot. In an instant, a volley of shots exploded through the air, ringing out like thunder. Edward flinched, fear gripping him like a vice. But instead of a shriek, all he heard was the agonizing crunch of bones and a muffled grunt. He looked up, horrified to see the gunman crumpling to the ground, torn between life and the void. A flash of crimson tore through the air, painting the wall behind him. Gasps filled the room as Jack's eyes widened. Was that? Before the question could linger, the hooded figure stepped closer, revealing a glint of silver. A badge. "FBI," the figure announced, voice unwavering. "You're all in serious danger." Edward's mind reeled. "What do you mean?" "The games your father plays have consequences," the agent said, voice steady. "You need to come with me, now." "Why would you help us?" Jack asked, skepticism lacing his tone. The agent paused, looking between Edward and Jack. "Because this isn't just about you two anymore. It's bigger. Your father isn't the only player in this game. He's working for someone with a far more dangerous agenda." Everything spun. Edward's brain raced. The betrayals, the lies, and now this twist. There was no escape. But the final blow rendered him speechless. "What do you mean, working for someone?" "Your father," the agent continued, "is a pawn in an even darker scheme. You're in the crosshairs of something that could destroy not just your family. It could bring the whole system crashing down." Gradually, the pieces began creeping together, forming shadows in Edward's mind. But then came the shattering truth. "Your mom," the agent stated, voice cold and factual. "She's the one pulling the real strings. Everything hinges on her. You were only a means to an end. She is the mastermind. Shock rippled through Edward's body. The room felt like it was collapsing around him. His breath caught in his throat. No, it can't be. She wouldn't. But the truth was laid bare as the agent stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face twisted in a mix of remorse and determination. We have a crisis on our hands. There's no time to waste. Are you with us? The air thickened with tension as all eyes turned to Edward. Choices loomed before him like shadows, threatening to engulf everyone. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was about family legacies, secrets, and the unmasking of betrayal. Are you willing to confront the real enemy? The agent pressed, those words hanging like a blade over their heads. Edward's heart raced. Everything he thought he knew was spiraling into an abyss. The truth was out there, threatening to shatter their already fragile realities. Would they plunge into this darkness together, or would it tear them apart? The stakes had never been higher. The air thickened, the tension palpable as Edward stared into the agent's keen eyes. It felt like the world around them was holding its breath, waiting for his answer. Are you willing to confront the real enemy? The weight of that question pressed heavily on Edward's chest. Of course we will. Jack jumped in, his voice echoing with urgency. You think we're scared? But Edward hesitated, grappling with the tapestry of deceit and betrayal weaving tighter around them. He needed a moment to breathe, to think, to process everything crashing down around him. Just as Edward opened his mouth to speak, the sound of sirens swelled outside, reverberating through the walls. The agent shifted, listening. They're here. They had precious little time left. Edward began to respond. If we trust you, but before the words could leave his mouth, the room exploded with chaos. The door burst open as a group of masked men stormed in, guns raised and shouting orders. Edward's heart dropped. Duck! He yelled, grabbing Jack and pulling him behind the conference table as gunfire erupted. The world turned to chaos. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, sending bits of plaster and wood splintering into the air. Crouched low, Edward's mind raced, every second pounding like a drum in his head. What had they stumbled into? It wasn't just about them anymore. They were caught in a whirlwind that threatened to consume everything in its path. Get down! The agent yelled, firing back. The screams echoed, chaotic voices merging into a cacophony of fear and confusion. Edward felt Jack tremble beside him, fear radiating off him in waves. Then silence fell, drowning out the ringing chaos. Just like that, the gunfire stopped. The room hung still, breaths caught. They peered over the table, confusion and dread in their eyes. Had they won? But then, someone stepped forward into the bleeding light. A figure, tall and imposing, half-shadowed in the dimness. Stop, he commanded, voice booming, reaching deep into the remaining tension. Back away from them. Edward squinted through the chaos and froze. His breath caught in his throat at the sight. Dad? He whispered, heart racing. This couldn't be happening. His father, the architect of his downfall, stood before him like some malevolent specter. The memories of their last confrontation rushed back, bitter and painful. Edward, his father said, voice surprisingly steady yet menacing. You still don't understand the game we're playing. The agent paled, instinctively moving back. You don't belong here. Oh, but I do, the older Miller sneered, glancing at his son with disdain. This is my show. Shock ricocheted through Edward's mind. You're behind this? Behind what? His father shot back, laughter bubbling up. Behind making sure you're safe? You need to trust me, son. We are not enemies. Not yet. Before anyone could react, a sudden rumble shook the room. A secondary explosion rippled through the floors, sending everyone sprawling. Rocks and debris rained down as the ceiling cracked. That was their cue. This was no random attack. Run, Jack shouted, pulling Edward just as dust clouded the room, obscuring pathways and visibility. The air thickened with urgency. Edward's chest tightened, eyes wide with panic. "You don't understand," his father yelled, struggling to regain control. "I can protect you." But the words fell away in the chaos. The metaphorical veil was lifted in an instant. Trust teetered on the edge of a knife. Disbelief warred with instincts. They had to choose, but the path forward remained obscured with uncertainty. As they stumbled to the door, a sudden thought froze Edward in place. "No, he can't be your father." Jack turned, confusion etched deep into his features. "His secrets are my secrets, and I'm not who you think I am." Edward's heart stopped. His entire world shifted once more. What did Jack mean? What was he hiding? Just as the realization washed over them, another detonation shook the building, choking the space with dust. They raced through the debris, their escape now a race against time and the unknown. The truth they had been trying to unravel, twisted, coiling with new, sinister angles. As they burst into the open air, Edward's heart raced, battling betrayal, fear, and a chaotic family legacy. "There's more, isn't there?" Jack panted, the fear in his eyes more than just about escaping. And Edward, energized with a desperate resolve, nodded, knowing that the answers lay waiting in the shadows. The true horror was only beginning. Edward and Jack stumbled into the night, breathless and shaken, eyes darting, ears straining to hear the chaos still echoing behind them. Every heartbeat pulsed with a frantic urgency. They had escaped the storm of bullets, but a heavier storm loomed over them, an unsettling truth they had yet to confront. "What now?" Jack gasped, glancing around to assure himself they were safe. The rain drizzled lightly, a cleansing balm on their skin, but the tension lingered in the air like a noxious fog. Edward didn't have the luxury of thinking, his heart racing with the adrenaline still pumping through his veins. Then, against the distant clamor of sirens and chaos, a soft sound sliced through the night, a low whirring that rose, shattering the uneasy quiet, a helicopter. Its spotlight illuminated the dark alley, capturing their fleeting forms in a blinding circle of light. "Over here," Jack urged, pulling Edward toward the shadows. They ducked behind. "Why would they be looking for us?" Edward murmured, panic clawing at his chest. "What is happening?" The questions buzzed in his mind, but the answers felt far away. As they crouched in silence, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, drenched and trembling. The glow of the chopper illuminated her features, and Edward's blood turned to ice. "Mom?" he whispered, disbelief crashing over him like a wave. "Edward!" She moved closer, her eyes wide with desperation. "You need to listen to me." "What are you doing here? This is insane." Edward scrambled to push away the disbelief, jaw clenched tight. "Just, please," she begged, taking a step forward. "I had to warn you. It's all a lie." Her voice trembled, urgency coating her every word. "Your father, he's not who you think he is. None of this is what it seems." Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the helicopter as it landed, the ground vibrating underfoot. Someone emerged, an armed agent stepping into the light. Fear twisted in Edward's stomach. "Get back!" he screamed, instinctively raising a hand to shield himself and Jack. "Stay where you are. You're both in serious danger," the agent shouted. But before he could advance, Edward's mother spoke urgently. "No, let him explain." "Explain what?" Edward snapped, confusion spiraling into rage. "What's happening?" His mother's voice softened, a mix of sorrow and determination. "The truth is buried beneath layers of lies. Your father is involved in something far beyond our family. He orchestrated all of this. His power runs deeper. But what he's doing is dangerous, and you're both on the brink of a disaster." "What? You expect us to just trust you?" Jack interjected, fists clenched, eyes darting between the woman and Edward. "Jack, please," Edward whispered, heart pounding. It felt impossible to process. But suddenly, another sound broke through the chaos, a string of harsh footsteps. More figures approached, shrouded in dark clothing, scanning the alley like wolves on a hunt. Their eyes glinted with malice. Edward's heart dropped as realization crept in. He and Jack were surrounded, caught in a tumult of betrayal. "Run! This way!" his mother screamed, urgency cracking her voice. "There's no time!" They turned to escape, but as they bolted, everything fell apart in a catastrophic flash. Edward's mother lunged forward, and in her wake, a sharp report split the air, a gunshot. Edward stumbled as a guttural cry erupted from his mom's lips, eyes wide with shock. "Mom!" Edward shouted, horrified, turning back. She faltered, swayed and crumpled to the ground. All noise dimmed to an echo, the world narrowing to a singular moment of devastation. "No! Please!" he screamed, scrambling to her side, heart-wrenching, mind reeling. Jack stood frozen, shock etching deep lines in his face. As Edward clutched his mother's lifeless form, a harsh whisper echoed in his mind. "The real enemy isn't just your father, it's your mother." Questions spun like a cyclone, twists of loyalty and betrayal tangled together. "No, no," Edward muttered, tears slipping down his cheeks as reality shattered around him. Everything he had believed turned to ash in an instant, a deeper conspiracy unraveling before his eyes. And as hazy forms closed in around them, shrouded in shadow, Edward realized that nothing could ever be the same. The fight he thought he understood was only beginning. In that moment, the truth expanded like a wound open to the world, and from it, something even darker emerged. Edward knelt there, cradling his mother in shock as the world disintegrated around him. The chill of the night seeped into his bones, but all he felt was the warmth fading from her body, slipping through his fingers. "Mom, please, you can." A group of shadowy figures charged toward them, angry shouts mingling with urgent footsteps. Edward couldn't process it all fast enough. He lunged for his mother, even as the others scattered. "Run!" Jack yelled, pulling Edward back. "We have to go." "No, I can't leave her." Desperation coursed through him. But Jack's grip was firm. They just lost someone. They couldn't lose each other too. The darkness encroached on them. Shadows cloaked the alley, but Edward's gaze held firmly onto his mother, now lifeless on the ground. Memories flooded back to him, laughter at family dinners, late-night talks, the smell of her perfume. The pain twisted in his stomach. It couldn't end this way. "Now!" Jack yelled, urgency shredding through Edward's grief. The figures were closing in. Edward gritted his teeth and tore himself away. A knife of guilt cut through him, but survival came first now. As they bolted down the alley, shots behind them rang through the air like thunder. They sprinted, adrenaline propelling them forward, glancing back only to witness the figures weaving closer, dangerous, relentless. "This way!" Jack shouted, leading them toward a side street. "We need to find a place to hide." They ducked into an empty warehouse, breathless and trembling, hearts racing like wild drums. Jack leaned against the wall, hands on his knees. "We need to lay low and figure this out." "She's gone," Edward murmured, choking on the words. His hands trembled at the thought of the life he was left with. "She was the only person I thought I could trust." Silence draped over them, heavy and suffocating, until Jack broke it, his eyes fierce. "We'll find a way. We need to find out what your father knows, what's really going on." Edward nodded, but something stalled in his chest. There was still confusion, lingering questions that twisted inside him. "But my mother, she said it's all a lie, and that he's not who we think he is." Just then a noise shattered the silence, A low hum filled the space, and Edward's heart sank. "What now?" he breathed. The doors at the far end of the warehouse creaked open. A figure stepped inside, cloaked in darkness. The faint light glinted off something metallic. A gun. "Edward," the voice called out, distorted yet familiar, sending chills down his spine. "You should have listened. You never know who will come for you in the end." The figure stepped closer. Edward's breath caught. "Dad?" His voice trembled, disbelief curling through him. "What are you doing here?" The figure smirked, the shadows hiding a familiar, sinister smile. "Your mother was wrong. It's time you learned the truth." In that moment, an explosion of bright light illuminated the space. It felt like the world paused. The realization crashed over Edward like a wave, dizzying and consuming. This was a trap, a grand maze leading him right back to the center of the lies he thought he had escaped. But the shock didn't stop there. The cloaked figure pulled back the hood, revealing a face he recognized all too well. His mother, alive. She grinned, eyes glinting with something cold and sharp. "Surprised to see me, Edward? You were always such a fool." Time froze. The room swirled around him. The very foundations of his life tremored under the weight of her words. Everything he thought he knew shattered into 1,000 pieces. His heart raced. You faked your death?" "Not just that," she said, stepping forward. "I needed you to see the truth. The world is far darker than you realize. And trust me, darling, we're just getting started." Jack's gaze darted between them, shock blooming in his eyes. "What are you saying?" Edward felt the walls closing in, like a noose tightening around his neck. His whole life was a masquerade. His mother, the untouchable, the nurturing, was at the center of it all. Every betrayal he'd faced fractured further, spinning out of control into a chaos he couldn't grasp. And as the reality crashed down, one truth echoed louder than the others, a chilling realization that the danger had only begun. "Why?" Edward stumbled back, his voice hoarse. "Why do this?" "Because it was the only way for you to understand the game, my dear," she said sweetly, as if explaining a simple lesson. "Now let's have some fun." Fear wrapped around Edward's heart like ice. The lines had blurred, trust shattered, and the stakes skyrocketed. What was real? What wasn't? All he knew was he was now on the precipice of something he never wanted to face. And as the shadows closed in once more, they stood on the brink, the truth looming ahead like a storm ready to tear through everything they once held dear. Edward knelt there, cradling his mother as the chaos blurred around him. Her eyes, once bright, now clouded over. "Why, Mom?" His voice cracked, breaking under the weight of betrayal. "Why this?" "Because, Edward," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "You had to know." But before she could finish, another shot rang out from the darkness, shaking the very ground beneath them. Edward flinched, instinctively wrapping his body around his mother as the concrete floor vibrated. Jack's eyes went wide, the tension in the air thickening like fog. "Get back!" Jack shouted, pulling Edward toward the shadows. But the gunfire continued, echoing off the warehouse walls like a nightmare come to life. The figures advanced, darkness crawling toward. "Run!" Jack yelled again, panic sharpening his voice. The urgency tore through Edward, but he found himself frozen, clutching his mother tightly. Her lifeless form felt too heavy, yet it was the only anchor he had left. Then, without warning, the rooftop above them exploded in a cascade of dust and debris. A beam fell, narrowly missing them, but it was enough. In the chaos, Edward caught a fleeting glimpse of the figure in the shadows, the one who had struck the final blow. "Your father didn't just betray you. He betrayed us all," she gasped weakly. "Don't say that," Edward cried, shaking his head. "He loved us." But something shifted within her gaze. "No, Eddie, He didn't. He was just playing a dangerous game, a game that you're now a part of. The urgency of the moment spiraled. Jack's hand gripped Edward's shoulder, pulling him back and away from the shadows. Now, we have to go. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted, and the warehouse trembled beneath their feet. Edward's heart raced as screams echoed outside. A different chaos, a siren's wail creeping closer. As they stumbled through the murky darkness, Jack glanced back, fear gripping his features. They're coming for us. With every step, Edward felt the pieces of his reality shredding apart. His mother's words echoed in his mind, suffocating every thought. You're not who you think you are. Then it happened. A blinding flash filled the room, and a figure emerged, glistening in the light. Edward! Jack! Get out now! The voice was familiar, a tether pulling him back. It was Lisa, his father's right-hand woman. The air thickened, confusion swirling. "What are you doing here?" Edward yelled. "You're one of them." "No, you don't understand," Lisa shouted, voice desperate, filtering through the confusion. "I'm your only chance to leave this alive. Your mother, she set you up." "What?" The betrayal tore through Edward like a blade. Staggering back, he felt it all collapse. The rage, the sorrow. She's lying. Is she? Lisa stepped forward, her expression fierce. This isn't just about your family's legacy. It's about a truth buried deeper than you realize. Your mother isn't who you think she is. Beneath the chaos, time froze. Edward's mind raced. Second by second, realization dawned. What do you mean? Before Lisa could answer, the room echoed with chaos. A second explosion rocked the structure, sending everyone sprawling. Dust filled the air, blurring their vision. Then, another sound emerged. A voice, cold and steely, cut through the chaos. "Stop. Just stop." Emerging from the shadows was not just another nameless face, but a fragile figure. An innocent child, clutching a toy in trembling hands. A child no older than 10, wide eyes searching the room. "What?" Edward gasped, horror gripping him. The child looked eerily familiar, but he couldn't place the relation. Was this? No, it couldn't be. "There's no time," Jack shouted, glancing between the child and the abyss of lies surrounding them. "You're all in danger. We need to go." The child stepped forward, voice small yet piercing. "You don't have to do this, Mom." The words struck Edward like lightning, igniting the room with a truth he'd never seen before. The child's gaze landed on Edward's mother, who sat stunned, disbelief washing over her features. All the connections clicked into place painfully. "What's going on?" Jack's voice shook, confusion wrinkling his brow. As chaos surrounded them, Edward's world fell apart again. The realization hit like a tidal wave. This child, with their haunted eyes, was evidence of everything. The web of deceit tangled deeper than he'd ever imagined. And as the walls closed in, the gravity of betrayal pulled them down. Edward knew one thing for sure. The scars of his family legacy ran deeper, darker than he could ever understand. Their escape hung in the balance, but nothing could prepare them for the truth that was about to unfurl in ways they never thought possible. Edward knelt there, frozen, staring at the child who looked so much like him. The air crackled wit. What is happening?" His voice trembled, and Edward felt the weight of the moment pressing down on all of them. "Please, don't hurt him," the child cried, eyes wide, innocence piercing through the chaos. "Mommy, don't let them take me." Edward's heart twisted painfully. "What do you mean?" He swallowed hard, trying to grasp the enormity of the situation. He felt sick to his stomach. Was this kid really his sibling? He couldn't process it. It felt surreal. "Your mother kept it a secret," the child wailed, tears glistening in those big eyes. "But we're family. I didn't know you, I swear." "Family?" Edward echoed, confusion churning within him like a storm. Reality folded in on itself. turning familiar faces into strangers. The laughter he once cherished turned bitter in his mouth. Lisa's expression shifted, uncertainty washing over her like a wave. "Edward, this changes everything," she said, her voice suddenly tentative. "You need to understand." A loud crash interrupted them. The door slammed open, revealing figures storming into the space, weapons raised. Edward's mind blanked. The danger was escalating in a heartbeat. "Run!" he shouted, abruptly breaking from the chaos that had entranced him. He grasped the child's hand, pulling them forward. But before they could escape, one of the newcomers shouted, "Stop right where you are!" Fear gripped Edward's heart like a vice. He turned to see their pursuers, his father leading the charge, shadowy figures flanking him. "You're coming with me, Edward." "No!" Edward shouted, panic flooding him. "You can't take the child!" He was filled with an overwhelming need to protect the innocent boy, yet uncertainty gnawed at him. He looked at his mother, eyes pleading for an answer. "Edward," she cried, desperation coloring her tone. "You've got to trust me." The room spun, chaos swirling, as Edward pulled the boy closer. "Why did you fake your death? Why is this happening?" But before she could answer, another flash of pain ripped through the air. A shot rang out, echoing like thunder. Time slowed as Edward turned, horror spreading through him. His mother fell to the ground, crumpling like paper, surprise etched on her face, a moment of betrayal that would haunt him forever. "Mom!" Edward screamed, dropping to her side, panic racing through him. His heart thudded painfully against his chest. Blood soaked the ground beneath her, a crimson pool spreading. "Get out, now!" Jack pulled urgently, but Edward couldn't move. Every instinct told him to stay. This was all wrong. The truth was shattering around him. The child yanked at Edward's arm. "We have to go, please." Edward's gaze darted between his mother's lifeless eyes and the child's terrified face. The world around him blurred. Everything he knew was collapsing. The pieces of the puzzle began to connect, weaving a narrative he never wanted. "Your mother was protecting you," his father's voice sliced through the chaos. Smooth like a serpent's whisper. "But now you are in danger, Edward. We both are." Then everything turned. The child whimpered, confusion on his face. "Is she really my mom?" In that moment, a bolt of recognition hit Edward like lightning. You're not just my sibling, are you? You're the reason for all of this." The room felt light and heavy at once, a paradox of reality crashing down. Edward's heart raced as the implications of this twist gnawed at him. The silence broke, tension palpable as they stood there, suspended in that moment, caught in a web of lies and half-truths. But the truth hung between them. Clearer than ever, the stakes had never been higher. "What do we do now?" Edward breathed, a lump in his throat, clutching the child to him protectively. Darkness loomed ahead, and with it the terrible understanding that their world had shifted irreversibly. As the sirens wailed outside, blending into the screams and chaos, a chill swept through him. This was only the beginning. Edward's heart thudded against his chest, a haunting mix of sorrow and rage as his mother lay lifeless before him. The world around him blurred as tears filled his eyes, but one thought kept screaming within him. This was not the end. He couldn't let it be. Not like this. The chaos echoed like thunder, sirens wailing outside, a distant scream rattling his bones. Jack pulled him back, desperation etched on his face. "Edward, we have to go. Now. We can't stay here." But Edward was torn. He glanced between the still form of his mother and the frightened child standing beside him. This little boy, who claimed to be his brother, was terrified. "What do we do?" His voice trembled, filled with anguish. "Focus," Jack shouted, fear twisting his words. "We need to get out before they find us. Stick together. Lisa, standing a few feet away, her face pale and drawn, stepped forward. You can't throw away the life you have left, Edward. Your mother, she was caught in a dangerous game. But you can still escape this. Her voice shook with urgency. Edward shook his head, reality crashing down. You don't understand. She died protecting us. I can't just leave her here. A lump in his throat tightened, the weight of grief threatening to crush him. Your mother wouldn't want you to die, too, Jack urged, pulling Edward back. She would want you to fight for your life, for the boy. This is madness, Edward shouted, panic seeping into his core. Everything I knew was a lie. Can't you see? But there was no time for debate. The sound of footsteps thundered from outside the warehouse. The lights flickered ominously, casting shadows as the door burst open with a crash. Edward's father stormed in, flanked by armed guards. Rage simmering in his eyes. Edward, his father shouted, voice slicing through the tension. Get away from her. We'll talk later. No more talking! No more lies! Edward yelled, determination fueling his voice. The child clutched his hand tightly, wide-eyed and fearful. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, an unexpected silence enveloped the room. Everyone held their breath. If you want to keep your son safe, you have to listen to me. It's not just your family, it's bigger. We were all players in this game, his father said, desperation lacing his voice. No, Edward snapped. This isn't how it ends. I'm done being a pawn. In that instant, clarity struck him. The boy beside him, innocent and untainted by the darkness surrounding the powerful, needed protection. We stand together, Edward affirmed, looking at Jack, then to the child clinging to his side. No one is taking my family any longer. As the guards moved to retaliate, Jack lunged forward, tackling one to the ground, the unexpected momentum crashing through the tension. Now, get out, he bellowed. Edward grabbed the boy, intertwining their fingers. Let's go. Together they bolted through the tumult, the distant sound of chaos spinning behind them. They rushed through the exit into the cool night air, panting heavily. Rain fell softly around them, a cleansing promise as adrenaline surged in Edward's veins. Jack glanced back, eyes wild. Which way? Left, Edward urged, focusing on the streetlights ahead. They ran until the sound of footsteps faded, each breath a step away from the life they had once known. As they found shelter, leaning against a wall of bricks, Edward turned to the boy, heart heavy with responsibility. What's your name? Finn, he whispered, a tremble in his voice. I didn't mean for all of this. It's okay. Edward knelt down, cradling Finn's face. We'll protect each other. We're family now. The boy nodded, a glimmer of hope breaking through. Jack stepped next to Edward. This isn't over. It's still coming. His voice felt heavy, reality crashing back in. Edward nodded. Together, as the rain washed away the night's dark horrors, they stood resilient amidst the chaos. Family found in the ruins of betrayal, the promise of new beginnings ahead glimmering in the distance. Yet, as they gathered their resolve, an unsettling truth lurked nearby. The journey ahead was paved with dangers, shadows still looming. And in the fragile light of dawn, they knew this was only the beginning. You must subscribe now. Don't wait one more second. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how it ends. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. You won't want to miss what's coming next.